All right, welcome back to the next part in my series on viewer-submitted tones and patches for the Line 6 Helix. This week, we're going to dive right in. I have a patch sent to me from a really nice fella named Arian Mustafi, and Mustafi, I believe. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing the name wrong. Some of these are beyond my ability to decipher. I hope I'm getting them right. Anyways, my apologies if I'm not. Arian sent me a pretty cool patch, actually, that he sent it to me and said he was looking for a tight, clear distortion, kind of new school metal type of a tone. And he sent me a video example, which was an isolated Avenged Sevenfold guitar track, which is actually pretty cool because I could hear just the guitar outside of the mix to get some sort of idea of what he was going after. Again, it's always going to be hard to match these tones exactly. You know, we're dealing with different guitars, different players and everything, but it is a good reference to be able to at least have something like that to know what the player is interested in. So he sent me this patch, which was based around two different amps, the Solo Lead Soldano and the Angle Meteor. And he has an interesting setup here. He sent me the IRs that he was using, so I kept all those the same, didn't touch those. He has two paths, both sets of multi. So basically what you're hearing here are two amps with two different paths just being plumbed together and come out the same output. So kind of an interesting patch. I didn't want to mess too much with that. I mean, again, if I was building this from scratch, I may have approached it a different way. But because Arian had something that he was getting close here on the sound, I didn't want to mess too much with it. I just wanted to see if I could change it to get him closer to what he was looking for. And you know, really and honestly, he had everything in really good shape. And with some really minor changes, I was able to get him something that he was really happy with. And he actually got back to me and he was just thrilled. He says it's kind of like, this is the closest he's been to the sound he's been dreaming about having for ages. And he said he's spent tons of money on so many different pieces of gear over the years, as a lot of us probably have, in search, you know, on the quest for that perfect tone. And so he was pretty happy with this in the end. He did say he needs a better guitar and he wasn't really happy with his pickups and whatnot, but he figures that once he upgrades his guitar to something more suitable for what he's after, he says this is going to be perfect for him. So that was awesome. I was really happy to help him out with that, and he was a really cool guy to deal with. Another guy. So many great people on these forums that I'm meeting and from the YouTube channel. So. All right, so what did we do here? Well, let's take a look. So what Arian has, he has a noise gate at the beginning. I usually don't touch that because, I mean, if somebody has a noisy environment, you know, in their system that's causing them problems, or noisy pickups or noisy guitar or whatever, I'm not going to deal with that. If they want that off, they can turn it off, right? He's using Scream 808 and a valve driver. The valve driver is going into the Angle amp. Scream 808 is going into the Soldano amp. He has his IRs that he sent me. I don't even touch those. Those are just, that's what he has. Now, he had a Cali and 10-band graphic EQ up here on the Soldano amp path, and then two graphic EQs, 10 bands, down here on the bottom path. Now, this is where things start to get a little bit complicated for me because, well, let me play you what this sounds like first. So here was what Arian sent me. Now, right away I went, yeah, it's very muddy. It doesn't have that clear sound I would want to hear. And that's something he said, tight, clear distortion, right? And it didn't sound like, you know, the example of what he sent me either. So I said, well, you know, I don't think there's any problem with the IRs using. I don't think there's any problem with the amp settings after looking at everything, or the distortion pedal settings for that matter. But I thought the EQ is probably causing him some issues. So what I did on my patch is I just basically went and got rid of his graphic EQs. I came in with two parametric EQs on each path, or one on each, two in total. And I set a high cut at 12.5 kilohertz and a low cut at 100 hertz up on the top path and the bottom, 100 hertz and 12 kilohertz. And I also played around just kind of boosting a touch of low, pulling a little bit of the lower mids out, but giving him a nice boost in the upper mids, which is where I think he needs that clarity. So this is what his patch turned into. A lot more clarity, a lot less bottom end now, mind you, too. So, you know, that's something that could be played with after. I didn't want to dial too much in because I didn't want to get that woofy kind of out of control bottom again, right? And I was dialing in this to the isolated Avenged Sevenfold track that he sent me, which surprisingly didn't have a huge amount of bottom. That's something we got to be very careful about. It's a good time to talk about that is if you're talking about recording or even playing live for that matter, those real low sub frequencies, all that's going to do by putting that in on a guitar is really make it sound kind of tubby and get in the way of the bass guitar and the kick drum. And it's going to make the mix a lot less clear for those instruments, right? And it's just going to kind of mask the frequencies that those should be in. So a lot of times when we're hearing a mix that sounds like it has a huge guitar sound in the bottom end, a lot of times that's the bass guitar kind of carrying it, you know, and they do dial a lot of those low frequencies out. So we got to be careful with that. It might sound really good and fat when we're playing it solo, but then we get it in a mix on a record or live, and it kind of just causes more problems than it fixes, you know? So I went probably a little closer to what those isolated tracks I was hearing sounded like. And again, get that up to stage volume, and it's going to sound a lot fuller anyways, right? So that was really all the changes I made. It didn't require a lot. I didn't mess with his amp tones. I didn't mess with his speaker cabinet IRs, his distortion pedals, nothing. I just played with the EQ settings and kind of contoured things to get closer to the example that he sent me. So in the end, Ariane said he was very happy with it. And again, it made me really happy. And I was glad to have been able to help him out. And he seemed really thrilled with it. So that was awesome. Thanks so much for tuning in again, guys. Another short one. That's nice when I get these patches that don't need a lot of work. It's quite an easy job. Please subscribe to the channel, guys. I really appreciate all the support. Like the videos and share them if you don't mind. Leave your comments too. I love talking with everybody about different aspects of what I'm doing here, even with any ideas or suggestions. I love that too. So thanks so much for all the support, and it is much, much appreciated. And we'll see you guys again very soon. Thanks so much for tuning in. Ciao.